and it's really my pleasure to be here and welcome you all on behalf of our director, Dr. Matthew White. He sends you his good thoughts. I sit at the executive team table, and I have a really awesome responsibility, and that's to channel all of your voices when the business of public mental health in Contra Costa County is being discussed and decisions are being made. And so I make sure that when I come to these events, I'm all ears. And so first of all, I want to thank all of you for braving the elements to be here. And you may not think that your presence or your voice is very important, but trust me, big time decisions with lots of money have been decided because folks like you come to these events and help us understand the issues you're dealing with, what your needs are. So first of all, how many are first timers? People that have come to this for the very first time? Very good, excellent. A welcome especially to you, and I know, Connie, you brought a whole bunch of folks all the way over from the east part of the county. So there's a feat in of itself. So as we go through here, we have set this up so that people that like to talk have plenty of opportunity. People that like to write, or they just like to put the dots up, do a little dot exercise. So we have different ways for you to participate. We do have a number of new folk here, and so I just want to be clear that this event is sponsored by Contra Costa Behavioral Health Services. We're in the business of care for people experiencing mental health challenges, and we're a public service. And I'm going to briefly go through some slides before Maria turns it over to a couple of our featured speakers. But what we have kind of evolved to, we do about 3 of these a year. Our stakeholder representatives help us pick themes. And we could not help notice that there was some real turbulence this last year in the participation of folks that are not citizens in partaking of our services. And so we wanted to put that as a theme for one of our community forums, and this is it. And I just discovered that I can point this just about anywhere, and these slide things will work. You also have the copy in your folder. There we go. I'm only going to briefly touch on this. We're going to come back to the schedule, but we all will be here in one group for a while. I'm going to speak to some slides. We're going to have a couple of speakers that Maria will introduce. We'll have some more slides. But then we're going to break up into small group discussions, and Maria will give you all the coordinating instructions for that. We'll go at that for 45 minutes or so. Then we will come back here, and then we'll play some games. We'll have opportunity for different venues for you to participate in what we are doing this evening. So part of behavioral health services is what we call the Mental Health Services Act, and we're required to make sure that our public understands how this act or law kind of filters in and supports the public mental health service that we provide. So the Mental Health Services Act is about 15 years old. Some of you folks that are closer to my age can remember back in the day when all we had was mental health clinics, and over time the public money for that started squeezing down, and so we got more and more selective about who we serve, and pretty much if you were going to get any service from us, you had to be eligible for Medi-Cal, and you had to have a really serious mental illness. This law that came into being 15 years ago was the public's, because the public voted on it, way of saying, that's not right. The community needs to be better served. And so they passed the MHSA, the act, and it quickly gave a huge jolt of new money. Right now it's close to 25% of our budget. Now, the people that wrote this, there was two important things. One is that they taxed the folks who are rich for people that really cannot afford mental health care, which I think is rather cool. The other two important strings attached. One is they put right into the law a value system. And it's right up here, which is that the services are to be consumer and family member driven. They're to be culturally competent. They're to be integrated into the community. And that there needs to be a service coordination so that people don't have to figure out which door to knock on to get a particular kind of service. Now, it's 15 years later, and we're still working on those values. Anybody that receives service from us or has a loved one who's getting service from us still gets confused and defeated by where in the heck do I go? And so part of really what we do in our office here, I have a little team that actually put this show on, is to ensure that anything that we put the MHSA dollar into subscribes to those values. And we set up a process where we are providing support for those program service providers to get better and better at it. The second big thing is that they put right into the law that our stakeholders, and guess what, folks? You all, every one of you are a stakeholder, because it's very broadly defined as anybody who's got an interest in public mental health. And by being here, you've expressed your interest. So you're a stakeholder. It requires that the use of that money involve the stakeholders. And we go through a real detailed process, and we do all kinds of venues, one of which is these community forums, but we have all kinds of stakeholder ongoing committees that we'll talk about a little later. We have one that's called the Consolidated Planning Advisory Work Group, and those people are appointed by our behavioral health director. They're designated to represent various groups out there in the community. They help put these on. So when we go to kind of, figure out what's our theme, how are we going to engage folks, they are our most trusted advisors. We operate by doing a 3-year plan, and right now we're kind of right in the middle of a 3-year plan, and then each year we have to annually update it, and then we go to the Board of Supervisors and say, this is how we would like to spend the money. So it's really important for us to set this kind of event up to ask you all, what's your service needs? What are suggested strategies for meeting those needs? And what's your priorities? And those are really important for us to make sure that every year we stay relevant to the folks that we serve, and that's basically all of you. This is a little busy slide that just tells you kind of how the money is. Our budget for Mental Health Services Act is over $50 million. A couple of points I want to point out here in this slide is that what is particular to the theme here is that the Mental Health Services Act for the first time mandated that 20% of that money goes out into community agencies, providers, to outreach and engage underserved populations. And a lot of you folks that are here, probably if I were to ask you, is your community underserved? They go, yeah. So we have a number of providers here. I see them right here. They've got the nice signs, and there's probably more in the audience. We set this up so that if you come early, like at 3, the opportunity is to network and to talk with service providers who are here. And so please take advantage of the folks sitting behind the tables here, and, don't be bashful. Introduce yourself and say, who are you? And, they'll say, oh, I'm from Asian Family Community Service. And they go, oh, really? What do you do? And that's people who care. There's another one right there. Asian Community Mental Health Services. NAMI. CORE. There we go. Jewish Family Services. Child Abuse Prevention Council. Bay Area Legal Aid. Very good. The other point I want to make about this slide is that when this money came into being 15 years ago, they were very clear that this money was not to replace monies that the county had set aside, and the state and the feds, for public mental health. Mental Health Services Act and all that money is meant to supplement, to enrich, to add on. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest points I want to make for today is that we set up a lot of our contracts and provide extra money to our clinics so that nobody gets turned away because of their citizenship status. Okay? The term we use is the uninsured. Folks who are not insured by Medi-Cal or Kaiser or any other health plan. That's one of the key things that the MHSA dollar does, is it fills in the cracks. A nice little slide of a lot of our partners, and there's a whole bunch more. MHSA dollars goes out into over 80 different programs, projects, plan elements. So we have a large footprint. This slide asks kind of what is going to happen today. And again, we're here to set the play up so that we listen and you talk and listen to each other. Here's a couple of slides, and they're kind of busy, but we started planning for this several months ago. We asked our stakeholder representatives from the Consolidated Planning Advisory Work Group, or CPAW, to help us with this. We put out a survey monkey and got responses from that, because we wanted to really know what the universe of issues are. And you see this is a long list, and that's these across here. Where? Which one was which here? And you're going to help us prioritize those, okay? And you can read along kind of, these are fairly unique to immigrant communities. We also have, which is on the back side, these are mental health service needs that we have developed over time with our stakeholders in events just like this. No surprise if you just look at the number one, which is more housing and homeless services, okay? But if you look, there's a number there all the way down to assistance with meaningful activity. So it's a different kind of list than the one before, which is really how do we offset fear and mistrust and understanding sanctuary cities and the difference between local law enforcement and ICE, peer support for immigrants. Oh, see, now I'm playing, Maria cautioned me about this. So we're going to ask you to prioritize those, and we'll get into how to do that in a little bit. And I'm now going to turn the slideshow over to Maria, and then she's going to introduce our speakers.
So first up we have to speak to you this afternoon is Amy Weiss, who's the Director of Refugee and Immigrant Services at Jewish Family and Children Services East Bay. And as she's making her way up, I'll ask our next speaker to, wherever she may be, to get ready to follow Amy after she's done. So welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be here with you all on this wet day. It's a pretty impressive turnout. Anyway, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Amy Weiss. I'm the Director of Refugee and Immigrant Services at Jewish Family and Community Services East Bay. I'm also a mental health practitioner. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and I come to this work from the lens of being a trauma specialist. I used to run a clinic and an internship training program with interns who's from all different countries and nations who were refugees themselves, and they worked with our refugee and immigrant clients. So that's how I come to this. I wanted to start by reading you a poem by a British Somali poet. Her name is Warsan Shire. I don't know if anybody's heard of her, but she wrote a poem called Home. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Your neighbors running faster than you, the boy you went to school with who kissed you dizzy behind the old tin factory is holding a gun bigger than his body. You only leave home when home won't let you stay. No one would leave home unless home chased you, fire under feet, hot blood in your belly. It's not something you ever thought about doing, and so when you did, you carried the anthem under your breath, waiting until the airport toilet to tear up the passport and swallow each mouthful of paper, making it clear that you would not be going back. You have to understand, no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land? Who would choose to spend days and nights in the stomach of a truck unless the miles traveled meant something more than journey? No one would choose to crawl under fences, be beaten until your shadow leaves you, raped, then drowned, forced to the bottom of the boat because you were darker, be sold, starved, shot at the border like a sick animal, be pitied, lose your name, lose your family, make a refugee camp a home for a year or 2 or 10, stripped and searched, find prison everywhere. And if you survive, and if you're greeted on the other side with go-home blacks, refugees, dirty immigrants, asylum seekers sucking our country dry of milk, dark with their hands out, smell strange, savage, look what they've done to their own countries. What will they do to ours? The dirty looks in the street, softer than a limb torn off. The indignity of everyday life, more tender than 14 men who look like your father between your legs. Insults easier to swallow than rubble, than your child's body in pieces. For now, forget about pride. Your survival is more important. I want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of a gun. And no one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore, unless home tells you to leave what you could not behind, even if it was human. No one leaves home until home is a damp voice in your ear saying, leave, run now, I don't know what I've become. It's a powerful statement, and it's true. It speaks to the experience of so many. And we work with various legal folks who have legal statuses. There are refugees who come with a legal status to receive benefits when they come here. There are people who flee from the same circumstances, and they come here and then seek asylum when they get here. So they have no legal status until they apply for legal status, and hopefully they will get it. And then there are the undocumented, who we've heard so much about in recent weeks, who flee because of war, because of torture, because of economic circumstances, and they cross the border and seek asylum once they get here. So there are various routes to but the route is the same. The route is, we cannot stay home. It's impossible to be at home. Home is impossible. And so seeking safety, seeking asylum, seeking sanctuary. So I know many of you in this room probably have a lot of experience about this subject yourselves, and so I don't mean to demean your experience, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity for people to share. I wanted to share a little bit about what we do. We provide services to refugees and immigrants, and we've been doing it for, about 100 years. And the origins of the work we do are with Jewish refugees because of the experience of the Jewish narrative of having to flee. And since then, there have been few Jewish refugees, and so we've continued to do the work resettling and assisting refugees and immigrants, because we know we're experts basically in this work. And we've recommitted over and over again to this work. At this point, I'd say the majority of the people we resettle are Muslim folks, and they have what's called special immigrant visas. Most of these folks worked in Afghanistan, and they worked for the armed forces in the United States as translators, as janitors, as butchers, and then they have been targeted by the Taliban and have been forced to flee. They've witnessed their families being brutally murdered, kidnapped, their colleagues beheaded, and they've had to flee. Just last week, we got a call at 7 in the morning. One of our Afghan case managers gets a call. This family of 7 arrived in San Francisco airport with absolutely no plan. 7 children, 2 adults. No plan of where they were going to go. They just had to flee. They found the money to get on a plane, and they made it. And one of the Afghan airport, the folks who work at the airport, who speak Dari, was contacted, and he knew the mother of our case manager, and she called at 5:30 in the morning. We got on the phone. We got them 2 cabs. We brought them into the office. Within an hour, we got them hosted housing, a team of volunteers. We had them a hot meal in the evening, and we got them. Now it's been very little time. They've found an apartment. We've gotten them employment, the husband employment, ESL instruction for the wife, and the kids are enrolled in school. That's what we do. We just respond to the need. So that's just a recent example. So we do resettlement services. That's one of the things we do. We're one of 3 agencies in the East Bay that does that. And that involves, it's a federal contract for people with legal refugee status, and they get 90 days of support, intensive support in resettling. Obviously, in the Bay Area, 90 days isn't enough to be able to make a living, to all the things that are involved with being independent. And so we provide many services post 90 days to support families to get settled. So we used to resettle 25 a year. We've been resettling an average of 150 people a year. And even though these times that we're in, this political landscape that we're in is so unwelcoming for refugees and immigrants, we continue to do this work, and we've continued to support people in about the same numbers as we have for years. We also have, interestingly, the only program in the world that is designed specifically for LGBT refugees. They've been able to receive a refugee status in recent years. And so we've designed a program that has hosted housing, because LGBT refugees do not have a community to welcome them. They do not have families. They come as single adults, and they're highly traumatized. They probably are the most traumatized refugees or immigrants we work with. We have a large bicultural staff. So that's refugee. I'm just going to go through this really quickly because it's a lot. We also have a contract to do intensive case management services for what's called vulnerable refugees. So that's anybody who has a significant mental health history, and that's anybody who's medically fragile as a refugee or an asylee, single parents, elderly, medically fragile folks. And we provide intensive case management and really walk them through every system that they need to go through in order to stabilize. Our mental health services is supported by PEI through the Mental Health Services Act. We're really very lucky to be part of this big network that Warren talked about. We are lucky to have Dr. Sohi Lachini, who's our Farsi Dari-speaking licensed psychologist, so we're able to provide clinical services in the mother tongue of our Afghan clients and Iranian clients. We're really lucky. And we provide parenting education classes. We provide all kinds of psychological services for our families. We just got funded, I think pretty much for certain, to develop a new program for Afghan families who are isolated in Contra, Costa County. The women, these families are young families, large families. The women generally are monolingual, don't speak English. The men go off to work 1 to 3 jobs so that they can support their families. And the women are isolated, and they don't speak English, and they've got to take care of these kids. So we developed a program that will include psychosocial support. It's a collaborative with the 3 resettlement agencies, IRC, Catholic Charities, and us. And so they'll have a psychosocial support for the women. We're going to have health education classes focusing on mental health and social events. So like kind of July 4th, so integration services that are socially oriented. So Ramadan celebrations, Mother's Day, July 4th, the New Year's, etc. So we're excited about that. That's going to launch in February. And we also have a large array of legal immigration services. And we're very excited that we were just funded to bring on a full-time licensed Spanish-speaking psychologist to work with our legal team. So we have 3 attorneys, immigration attorneys, 4 DOJ reps. And so we can provide a whole array of immigration services, including deportation defense. We're part of a collaborative called Contra Costa Standing Together, which I see Dave Thompson in the audience from Monument Impact. We partner with Monument Impact to provide deportation defense for undocumented immigrants who are picked up by ICE and detained. And we're able to provide legal representation, mental health services, and our philosophy is a comprehensive set of wraparound services. We are able to raise money from donors to have financial assistance when needed. And generally we do rental subsidies because it's really impossible to afford to pay rent in the Bay Area, and educational services as well. Probably leaving out a few things. We do other case management. Anybody with a family who comes through our doors can receive case management services post 90 days. And so we're proud of that. Another case that's just really interesting that happened recently, would be interesting for you to hear about, is an Afghan family that they were resettled by some other agency, and they moved to Verloc? Anyway, another community, and then they moved to Antioch. So they had no resettlement orientation services. They started their 13-year-old kid in school there, and he became chronically bullied. I mean, he had a really terrible experience at school out there. And one day, I think he picked up his finger like this and pointed it to one of the kids who was bullying him. And somebody called the police, called his mother. His mother comes to school. She wears a hijab. She doesn't speak a word of English. And the police came and handcuffed him and took him away to jail. And the mom was sobbing and on the floor and begging and sobbing but couldn't communicate. And we get called, and I wrote a letter to the judge, and we got him released. And then we were able to get them relocated to Concord. They started a whole new school system. We were able to do mental health support, provide EMDR, trauma reduction therapy, and the family is just, doing well right now. But this is the kind of intensive step-in involvement that some of these families need. And I'd say a good 80% have been severely traumatized in one way or another. Just fleeing your home, that alone with nothing else, is tremendous loss of kinship, of your culture, of way of life. And then to have to move into a fairly unwelcoming environment in this country right now, it's scary. So people are hiding from services they're entitled to. And I know today there's going to be an opportunity for us to brainstorm about some of these challenges with all of you. I think it's going to be really interesting to be able to have that opportunity. So we rely on partners. We couldn't do this work without our volunteers. We have about 500 volunteers that work with us. We provide these welcome groups of volunteers to every refugee, every immigrant who comes through our doors. And people are so wonderful. They open their homes. We have a hosted housing program for folks who can't afford their rent. And we have 17 active hosted housing arrangements at any one time, and then we're always bringing more people in, and we train them. So we partner with volunteers, the community. We partner with mental health services, with partners. Partnership in Trauma Recovery is one of our partner organizations that take clients. And we are limited in the services we can provide under PEI, so we have to partner out. But, we're very honored to do this work, and we're very honored to be with you today. So thank you.
All right, then. Blanca Gutierrez, of the Project Coordinator for Community Clinic Consortium, is our next speaker.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Blanca Gutierrez. I'm a project coordinator with the Community Clinic Consortium. We're a nonprofit that's based here in Richmond, but we serve all of Contra, Costa County and all of Solano County as well, with our member clinics including Lifelong Medical Care, La Clínica de la Raza, CMC, and Ole Health. Today, I will be presenting a public charge. And I do want to note, for my monolingual Spanish speakers, I did make this presentation available in Spanish, so you should have the Spanish copy. If you do not, I will stay for the duration of this event, so please feel free to contact me afterwards, and I will make sure that you have the materials you need in Spanish. So what happens when someone applies to enter the U.S.? They have to undergo what's known as a public charge test. The same is true for those who already live here in the United States that are applying to obtain their green card, otherwise known as becoming a lawful permanent resident. These folks have to undergo a public charge test. Okay? Also important to note that green card holders, or people that are already lawfully permitted residents here in the United States, if they leave the country for 180 consecutive days, that's 6 months, upon re-entry to the country, they may be subject to take the public charge test again, okay? And what is public charge? Public charge is simply a term that's used by immigration officials to describe someone who they believe will become dependent on the government for subsistence in the future. So this is a forward-looking test. If an applicant is deemed a public charge, that means that their application is denied. If they are applying to enter the United States, they will not be allowed in. If they are applying to get their green card, they will not be able to get their green card. This slide is my favorite slide. It's really important to note that these folks up here that you see on the screen are protected by the law. That means that when they go and apply for their green card, they are exempt from ever having to take the public charge test. That means they do not take the public charge test even when they apply for their green card. So who are these folks? Asylees, refugees, victims of human trafficking, victims of domestic violence that have the T and U visa, special immigrant juveniles, self-petitioners under the VAWA are a few of these folks that are protected by the law. So even after we're done talking about this proposal and all of the changes that may or may not happen to public charge, I do want you to know that these folks will remain protected by the law. Also important to note that people that are already lawfully permanent residents or already have their green card, when they apply to become U.S. citizens, they do not take the public charge test, okay? They take a civics test and an interview, but that's different from taking the public charge test. They do not take the public charge test. It's really important to recognize that here in the United States, we have a lot of folks that are living here, that are residents, but that unfortunately do not have a pathway to legalization. For this reason, these folks do not have to worry about taking the public charge test. Only folks that are applying for their green card that aren't exempt have to take the public charge test. So what actually happens during the public charge assessment? An immigration official has to consider what's known as the totality of circumstance. This means that they have to look at factors like the person's level of education, their health, their income, among other things, right? And this is really important, and I'll tell you why. If I am receiving, say, SSI, which right now can count negatively against me, that does not automatically make me a public charge. Why? Because they have to consider the totality of circumstance. So while that may count as a negative factor, it will not automatically make me a public charge because I may have other positive factors that can outweigh that negative factor. And right now, only cash benefit programs that you see up here are counted negatively against the applicant if they are receiving them. So SSI, TANF, and long-term institutionalized care that's paid for by the federal government can count against an applicant. Now we come to the changes to public charge. On October 10th, the Department of Homeland Security published a proposal to make some changes to public charge rules. I want to be very clear about this. The proposal is to accomplish one thing, to make the process of obtaining a green card much more difficult. And this is how they will do it. 3 things. The first one is it adds new heavily weighted factors. The second one is it extends who has to take the public charge test. And the third change they want to do is they want to expand the list of programs that can be counted against an applicant during the public charge assessment. Here are the heavily weighted negative factors and positive factors that they want to add. Now, the factors you see up here on this slide are weighted much more heavily than the factors on the next slide. They're still important though, right? The first one is lack of employability. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the following slide. What does that actually mean? The second slide, I'm having trouble reading it, is the receipt or use of one or more public benefits within 3 years of filing the application. Okay. And the third change is health conditions. They're going to be looking at health conditions and whether or not your health condition interferes with your ability to go to work or to go to school, especially if you are uninsured. Also, this may be the second time or the third time that you are applying for your green card or to come to the United States, and maybe in the past you were labeled a public charge. Because that happened, if this proposal goes through, it will also be counted as a heavily weighted negative factor the second time around that you are applying. There's one positive factor that you'll see up here, and that is if the applicant earns more than 250% of the federal poverty line. That's a lot of money. For a family of 4, that's a little over $30,000. Oh, for a household of 1, that's a little over $30,000. For a family of 4, that number goes up to over $62,000, right? That's a lot of money. And the reason why I state that this positive factor you see up here isn't that great is because this is supposed to be the land of opportunity. But with this proposal and this change in particular, it's saying one thing. The U.S. only wants to welcome those who are wealthy. And that is not true. That is not representative of our values. Here are some other not weighted factors. Here are some other negative factors that can count against an applicant. And this speaks specifically to lack of employability, right? So they will be looking at the applicant's age. If the applicant is a child or if the applicant is over 61 years old, this will count as a negative factor. The reasoning behind this is that they're going to say, well, children, they probably don't work, more likely to become a public charge. For those who are older, they're going to say, well, they're probably retired or close to being retired. They're most likely to become a public charge. This, to me, is age discrimination. The second thing they'll be looking at is financial status. They'll be checking people's credit scores. If they have a bad credit score, that will count negatively against them. And anybody that has ever gone through the immigration process can tell you that it gets expensive, and it gets expensive fast. But that's okay because there are a lot of programs, a lot of organizations that provide fee waivers, right, to help submit those applications. But the thing is, with this proposal, they will also be looking at whether or not the person applied or received a fee waiver. And if they did, it would also count negatively against them. Health. We talked about this a little bit. If the applicant has a chronic health condition, they're going to see if it's possible that it interferes with their ability to go to work or to go to school. If it does, if they feel like it would, then that would also be counted negatively. Family status. If the applicant has an X number of dependents or children, this will also be taken into consideration. Assets and resources. If the applicant makes less than 125% of the federal poverty line, this will also be counted as a negative factor. Education and skills. For the first time, the U.S. will look at whether or not the applicant knows how to speak English fluently. And if they do not, this will also count as a negative factor. The second change is it extends who has to take the public charge test, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, only those that are applying to enter the U.S., those who already live here, applying to get their green card, or those that leave the country for 180 consecutive days upon re-entry have to take the public charge test. But with this proposal, what they want to do is they want to expand it so that those that have non-immigrant visas, so those are student visas, tourist, and work visas, when they want to change the category of their visa or when they want to extend their visa, they would have to take the public charge test. So what does that actually mean? Let's say I am a student. I am attending university and I graduate. At the time, I have a student visa. When I graduate, I say, hey, I like the United States. I want to stay and I want to work. Before I am able to start working, I have to change the category of my visa from a student to a worker's. If I do this right now, I do not have to worry about taking the public charge test. But if I wait until the proposal may become effective, then I would also be subject to taking this public charge test. This is probably the change that we hear about the most. They want to add non-cash benefit programs to the list of programs that can be counted against an applicant. And so what are these programs? These are federally funded programs: CalFresh, Medi-Cal, non-emergency Medi-Cal, really important, Medicare Part D, which provides a pharmaceutical discount, and federally funded housing assistance programs like Section 8. If somebody uses, somebody that has to take the public charge test is using these benefit programs, then it would count negatively against them, but it wouldn't necessarily make them a public charge. All of these programs that you see up here, with the exception of possibly CHIP, are excluded. I want you, if you have the packet in front of you, I want you to fold this page. It is so important that you know that all of these programs, with the exclusion of possibly CHIP, are excluded programs, meaning you can continue participating in the programs and it will not count against you when you have to take the public charge test. So important. A lot of people are dropping these programs out of fear, out of misinformation, and I want you to know that there's a lot of programs out there that people can still continue to access and receive without that fear. CHIP, I say possibly. CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program. And the DHS, when they submitted their proposal, they wanted to get feedback during the open comment period as to whether or not they should include CHIP in their proposal or not. Right now, they're still reviewing all of the comments, so we don't know what's going to happen with CHIP yet. But so far, it is excluded. This is subject, maybe could change. I'm going to go ahead and skip this slide for the sake of time, but it is in your packet, and please review it. The rule is not retroactive. This means that there may be no benefit at all to disenrolling from benefit programs right now. The proposals that I spoke about today are not effective yet. Finally, I want to leave you with this. There's the Protecting Immigrants Family campaign. And if you haven't heard about this campaign, I encourage you to Google it when you have a chance. This campaign is wonderful, and it is the reason why we were able to submit over 200,000 comments opposing the changes to public charge. And comments matter. So I want you to go ahead and encourage your own self and your own family members to get involved in this process, because the fight is not over. These changes are not effective yet, and there are things that you can do today to protect your family and your loved ones from policies like this that aim to basically become destructive to our community. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today and for making it out despite this weather.
Thank you, Blanca. We're going to switch slides one more time. And so the next part of the afternoon here is going to be an opportunity for you to sit into smaller groups in order to have the discussions that you are here really to have. And before we go ahead and break out into groups, first of all, some folks are going to be remaining in this room, and other folks are going to be headed in that direction through that doorway there. There's actually 3 consecutive rooms. And in each of those rooms, we've set up some chairs already in a circle. And there's also some colors associated with those rooms. And those colors are going to be the same as the colored sticker on your folder. That's why I need you to look at that folder. And it's on the outside cover of it. Throughout the entire discussion, we need you to stay with the same group. So that way your conversations can go a little bit deeper. And it's easier to stay with the same folks in order to do that. A reminder to stay focused on the topic at hand. Be respectful of the different perspectives that you'll hear other people talk about, and please don't criticize those perspectives. And really, kind of the last little point to remember is to listen to understand. All right, so once you've joined your group and you have your discussion in your small group, we will be coming back to this room to conclude the afternoon, so know that. And for right now, I wonder if I can get my facilitators, if you can all come up front and have your colored signs in front of you or with you. I'll let you say that in a second. So each of these folks are the facilitators for your small group discussion, and you'll notice that they have a color sign. No? There's a color sign on the wall. Okay, so the colored signs are actually on the walls as you go farther back into those rooms. For example, if you turn around right here, I see a purple sign right here, and I see a blue sign. So folks who have purple and blue, you're going to be staying in this room. Yeah. In the next group, in the next room, there's actually a pink sign, and we're going to have the folks who are the Spanish-speaking folks in there. Then a little bit further beyond that is the red and orange, and the last room is the green and yellow. So we're going to go ahead and have, okay. So if you could take a look at the colored dot on your folder, if you can place yourself in those different locations, we'll go ahead and get started.
So you've hung with us through the entire meeting. So again, thank you for coming. I just want to do a couple of things before we turn it over for public comment and doing the dot exercise. And these slides here, I got to get the right gadget. Are how you can stay involved with us to assist us in doing the business of public mental health. And there are some links here. We have a MHSA web page that is, you go to Contra Costa County and you go to behavioral health, and there's an MHSA web page. It has all of these materials electronically, and there's another page or link that from the MHSA page. It's called CPA, Consolidated Planning Advisory Work Group. We had, I say had past tense because we had applications out front for CPA, and somehow people took them, which was cool. If you would like to join us, there is a number of different kinds of ongoing committees, work groups that we sponsor. In your folder, there is a little trifold that explains the Consolidated Planning Advisory Work Group. That's folks that are appointed by our behavioral health director. And even if you don't want to get appointed, you just want to come for kids issues, or you'd like to participate in consumer-driven activities. And I see I'm playing with this gadget again. There we go. Please join us. And this, again, has been filmed on closed-circuit television. The counties, gentlemen, thank you very much. And so you can go to the county's website and view this at your leisure in case you missed some of it or want to see it again. there's our MHSA website. There's some other resource information there, and additional websites that are a little hard to read in your paper handout that is in your folder. But again, if you go to these websites, then you can get the direct link. So before I turn it over for the public comment and dot exercise, I would first of all like to really express my appreciation for the folks that actually put this on. And I'll start with our CPAW, Consolidated Planning Advisory Work Group members, who really are our true partners because they give of themselves. So if you are a CPAW member, stand up. Come on. Don't be bashful. There we go. And then we have our MHSA, or Mental Health Services Act team that I have the privilege of working with. And we kind of rotated around, and the lead person that really put all this together is Jennifer Bruggeman. Raise your hand, Jennifer. And Jenny Zezate, and Golnaz, Fortune goalie there. And last but not least, who's not in the room, she's guarding the door so that she'll get an evaluation form out of you before she lets you go home, is Audrey Montana. All of this stuff, she just spent hours and hours putting all this together. So a special thank you. And our facilitator extraordinaire, Maria Pappas. Okay, so we're going to kind of do simultaneous, the dot exercise and the public comment. So I'm going to take this mic because some of you might want to be infamous and get your mug on the TV. Some of you may not and want to speak from wherever you are. So I'm going to take this. We're going to give you the opportunity to comment for up to 2 minutes. Maria is going to be the timekeeper. So if you tend to ramble on, please don't, because we need to get home to dinner and our families and so forth. So, but this is kind of like your opportunity to provide some input, via the microphone. While we're doing that, then you can, if you like, you can listen to the public comment and take your 5 dots. What was it? The orange is back there, and you can put all 5 on one, or 2 on one, and 2 on another, and 1, and then the blue dots are for over here. What we do with this is all of the material that our facilitators wrote. Okay. Tomorrow morning we gather these materials and all of your voting, as well as last November's that was in Antioch and last June that was in Concord, and we write what we call a community program planning process chapter. That goes into our MHSA 3-year plan update. We will also share that with all of our committees, the Mental Health Commission. It'll become a very public document, so you actually get to see your participation reflected in the kind of documents that support how we spend our money and how we deploy our resources for our community. So, having said that, yes, this is what we have so far. If you would like to provide some public comment, see Goalie right there. And if you're bashful and don't want to come up, she'll come to you. So let me get this. And Unfortunately, I have to get my reading glasses out. And I believe this looks like a Y-E-N-N-Y Garcia, Vice Chair. Okay, how do you pronounce that?
Yenny.
Yenny,
Yes.
all right. Yenny.
And I'm not shy. Yenny Garcia, I am the Vice Chair for the Citizens Police Review Commission for the City of Richmond. One of the things that we do at the commission is we investigate complaints from the citizens of Richmond or the residents, people that live in Richmond, regarding excessive use of force, unnecessary use of force, or racism. So if you've ever been a victim of any of those three things I just mentioned, you can make a complaint with us. We don't work with the police. However, we do help implement policies and ways to better the relationship with the police department and the community. So one of the things that I do there is review these claims from residents, and we go on ride-alongs with officers. And one of the main things in regards to mental health issues is officers are being tasked with the challenging duty of having to deal with 5150 patients a lot. Some of them are not trained or equipped to deal with it in an effective and positive way. And we've seen it. We see the results of it. And so really having the education and training for peer-to-peer support that will be able to support families and clients or victims after hours. Because sometimes our counselors are gone by 5, and then at night, for whatever reason, a lot of things happen. Our clients are faced with the challenges that maybe they didn't get their medication on time. Maybe they weren't able to talk to their counselor that they're used to. And so having, from one of the groups we were at, I learned, I didn't know this, that we have a mobile crisis team that was recently implemented with county. But what are their hours? Are they available 24 hours? Because crisis and challenging situations happen when everybody's gone home. And then who gets to deal with it? Unfortunately, some families get forced to call the police. And we don't want the police to do that anymore. Is that my time? So creating those programs, so important. Please fund those.
Thank you. Our next speaker is April Langro. April, where are you?
Okay, so hi, I just wanted to give a quick announcement. My name is April Langro, and I'm the administrator for Recovery Innovations, also known as RI International. We host a lot of trainings in the community, and we have an important one coming up related. It is peer employment training, and RI Consulting received an OSHPD grant to offer it for free to our community. This is a 70-hour training. It starts January 28th and ends February 5th. No, 8th, sorry. And it's being held in Antioch because that's our largest center. So if you'd like to be a peer employee one day, someone with lived mental health experience, then please come get my card and I can connect you to our RI Consulting and get you enrolled in this very special training, okay? So this is for somebody with lived experience in the field and would like to be a certified peer employee later on, okay? Thanks.
Thank you, April. Our next speaker is Andrea, and it looks like it's Zarate. Did I get that right? Okay. Would you like this or come up? She's trapped. We made it as difficult as we possibly could for you. Okay, why don't you?
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea. I'm actually a spokesperson for the nonprofit organization People Who Care. What we do is we work with first generation, second generation immigrants as well. And what we do is that we help them get out of the streets, and we help them do community service with us in all the events that we go to. We educate them in regards to staying out of the streets, the importance of I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous. Of being proactive people in their life as well. We reach out to them in regards to finding a place, finding an escape, and that's basically what we're all about, is having this escape where they can go to whenever they don't want to go home. After school, we take them in and they do community service with us. We do actually what's called green jobs as well. And then we help them touch bases with whatever they're interested in. We have projects in regards to the environment, projects in regards to robotics. So there's different aspects in which we can get them focused onto pursuing their dreams and onto goals. I remember I was in 8th grade when I had just got into this program because I needed to do community service due to referrals that I used to have and things like that that I would get myself into in middle school. And being mentors, they helped me become the person that I am today. They encouraged me to, thank you. Thank you. They encouraged me to, when I got into high school, they encouraged me to apply to something called Puente. What Puente is, it's access to immigrants that would pursue college in regards to no matter what your social status is, you can always pursue what you want. And so I signed up for the program, I got in. I kept going to the program. Right now, I'm actually a sophomore at a community college. And so being part of this program has really impacted my life in such a positive way that I can't really seem to express how much it's really impacted me. And then in regards to immigration and in regards to all of that, it's really important for us to focus on the mental health as well, because I never knew that my mom had schizophrenia until she was diagnosed with it. And it has such a big impact on immigration, because as coming from a Mexican background, we're always told to just hold it in, just hold it inside. You know, nobody has to know about what you're going through. Nobody has to know about your problems. But it reached until that peak that really my mom has schizophrenia. It's like I've never seen it coming from her. And then her telling her doctor that she would hear these voices, that she would hear her mom saying, come home, come back home. And it's almost been 2 years that my mom went back. She actually went back to Mexico almost 2 years. It's going to be 2 years on March 11th. And it's been really hard for me because there's no really way for me to go back over there. Because if I go back, I wouldn't be able to come back. But like right now, what I'm doing is I'm just focusing on my education, and then that way later on in the future, I know that I will meet up with my mom again. And so, thank you. And then so I just want to leave you guys with determination. So whatever you want and whatever you want to pursue with determination, you'll get there. You'll get to wherever you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Our next speaker is Douglas Dunn.
Thank you, Warren. And in the group we were in this afternoon, several things came out. It's very important that the programs that we have going forward have programs to support immigrants, but especially the immigrant families, because you're not going to reach the immigrants without involving their families. Right. That is a challenge in itself, because often you may have cultures within cultures reaching immigrant families, and it is also important to have materials in more than just English and Spanish, because you have to reach them in their language, because there are multiple threshold languages in Contra Costa County, and that is something I believe the county needs to keep in mind for programs going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. This one is, the person didn't put their name down, but I'll read what they wanted to say, which is, communities all over the country need more resources like this day. Our next speaker is Sean Casey. Would you like me to come to you, or you come? No, okay.
Hi, I'm Sean Casey. I'm the director of First Five Contra Costa. And happy to be here. And so I want to just say a couple things about children within the context of everything we're talking about. First of all, 50% of the children in Contra Costa County have at least one parent who's an immigrant. This is being an immigrant is very much a family issue in that respect. And I think when we think of the needs of very young children, there's a huge capacity for a two-generation effect when we think about how do we support young children, because young children obviously are very much in a relationship with their parents. And so doing the preventive work to ensure healthy development in young children has huge payoff for their health, mental health, physical health, otherwise, later in life, but also can be hugely beneficial for their parent at the same time. So a lot of the work we do is really about strengthening that relationship between young children and their parents. But the other thing is also helping them be resilient and providing the strength in their early years that translates into resilience throughout their lifetime, which is hugely important for children who experience trauma or chronic stress in their early years. There are about 130,000 adults in Contra Costa right now who have experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, traumatic experiences that have affected them in ways that has negatively impacted their health. So folks who experience more than 4 or more traumatic experiences in early childhood are at an increased risk as adults for chronic disease like diabetes, addiction, and a whole host of mental health things. So when we think about mental health, particularly in high stress families who maybe have come to this country to escape stressful situations in their countries, a huge part of that we need to remember is how is that affecting their children, and how can we intervene early to provide that resilience. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Our last speaker is April Loveland. April?
No, I think I accidentally just put I wanted to make a comment, and I didn't realize it was an open comment. Sorry.
False alarm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read it. It's just a compliment.
Very good. Oh, we have another one? Oh, we do have one more. So I wasn't lying about there's one more. And I have to read it with my glasses. Darlene F.
Hi, good evening. I'm a student at Contra Costa College. I'm Health and Human Services Vice President. I volunteer for NAMI. I volunteer for Support for Recovery everywhere in the community. My main issue is mental health in schools. There's a lot of schools out here that don't have mental health services or mental health counselors or mental health, period, in schools. I feel that our employees of Contra Costa County, of everywhere, should be trained, educated, and reinformed every 6 months. Because just like laws change every 3 to 6 months, people change every day. We don't know where our mental state gonna be tomorrow. We don't even know where our mental state gonna be tonight. So getting this information in these schools from youth to adult is very crucial and critical, because a lot of youth, a youth go to you, then go to you, and then go to you. They're not gonna wanna come talk to nobody. If a youth goes to one person and be able to go through the system with this one person and gradually gain this bond of trust and compliance and comfortability and just compassion. That's something that these youths have. I didn't have this when I was in high school, so they need to have this in schools now. And schools need to not be so biased. A lot of teachers, a lot of employees of Contra Costa County, a lot of school teachers, a lot of people, employees, period, are biased and racial profiling, and that's ugly. You can't racial profile nobody because you don't know their background. You don't know where they've been. Heck, you don't even know where you're going to be tomorrow. So don't be so biased to these children and to people that need these services, especially in mental health, because that's one thing America wants to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So folks, you all know it's not over till the paper's done. So we've got the dot exercise. So use your dots and then turn your forms in to Jennifer and Goli over here. And if you are a recipient of mental health services and you've helped us out, you can see Audrey out front for a gift card. And one final announcement.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let everybody know about a resource that is coming up. It's not necessarily on the west side of Contra Costa County, but I wanted to make it known that there's this organization called One Justice. They offer free immigration clinics, and what they do is partner with a community organization that's based in the community to provide the immigration clinic. So they'll use your host site. They come, the staff provides all of the services. If you're interested, there's this one flyer left in getting information to possibly be a host site sometime in the future. You can come see me and I can give you the information and connect you to the person. Thank you.